Well, we'll take you to the country of Estonia, because this is where it all starts, in Tallinn, in the main capital, because this is where skeleton technology sits. And we've got today with us the founder, Taavi Madiberk. They are in the business of providing power solutions and pioneering ultracapacitors with over 50 tech patents, and now they're scaling up their construction by actually building the world's largest ultracapacitor factory. That's a great story coming out of Estonia, which, well, you know, I'm sure you know, is one of the leading hubs when it comes to the ratio of people versus unicorns. That's a place. Boldwise and a few other unicorns are coming from this place. So there's really something special in the water and in the air there, and that's what we're now going to explore. With us, the CEO and co-founder of Skeleton Technologies, in conversation with David Rowan, the founding editor-in-chief of Wired UK, and author, a keynote speaker, a leading authority on innovation and future thinking. Please welcome with me, David Rowan and Taavi Madiberk. Welcome! Good to see you again, David, and welcome.
So we're all very excited about this AI revolution, and we don't really want to face the tough part, how we're going to power it, the energy consumption of the data centers every time you type in a prompt. This man thinks he can help solve it. So Skeleton Technologies is building hardware, new kinds of ultra capacitors that create massive efficiencies. Taavi Madiberk, give us very quickly the science lesson, because you work with something called curved graphene. Tell us what physically you're building, and then we can talk about where it fits into the AI data center ecosystem.
Yeah, absolutely. So supercapacitors store energy in an electrical field, so no chemical reaction takes place. And from sustainability perspective, we use no lithium, no cobalt, no manganese, just 2 layers of graphene with high surface area and a lot of power. Now, where it fits into the AI data centers. Do you know that 40% of the energy at the moment in AI data centers is just burned off? And why is that? Because the power grid cannot handle the fluctuations from AI, which happen every second. So Skeleton smooths out those peaks and saves 40% of energy and cuts the power connection by almost a half. Because in the end of the day, what is the real question? The real question is the cost of computing. And one thing is the energy cost, but you know what else happens with the GPUs? They tend to overheat, because if you now burn off that energy, because the grid cannot handle fluctuations, you leave up to 40% of performance on the table. And that costs about 100 billion per year, because you have 330 billion AI investments by the Western companies alone. And if you leave 40% on the table, that's a topic of 100 billion which needs to be solved.
And you're not just talking about this, you're building. Next month, you switch on production lines in Leipzig, in Germany, in Finland, and you're making these chips. And you've also raised 300 million euros. So you're a player. Can you tell us which of the big tech companies you're already working with?
So let's start where you can find Skeleton products today. BMW vehicles, i7 M-Class, you can find them in Volvo trucks, but you can find them with Siemens, Hitachi Energy, General Electric and others. But then, what is maybe the most exciting part, if you go into AI data centers, then already today you can find Skeleton products with a certain hyperscaler. We believe that by the end of next year, you will find them with all of the hyperscalers, because the value proposition is clear. By adding a few percentage of CapEx, you get 40% more performance.
Does that mean every company running AI data centers is knocking on your door trying to partner with you?
Yes, in reality it's so that we are talking to all of the major hyperscalers. Actually, my team is at the moment in US, in the Open Compute conference, and it's very clear that all of the hyperscalers, they have understood one thing, that power management becomes the key, because if you lose performance because of overheating, that's bad. But what is even worse, think about now you're training AI model, how much time it takes. Anybody in the audience, how much time it takes to train an AI model? No, it takes up to 3 months. And then the issue is that when you lose the power in between, then rebooting that model is almost impossible. So you might lose all of the work what you have done just because of simple one power outage because you couldn't handle the peaks. And that's why we are in close contact with literally all of the hyperscalers, and this will be the skeleton of AI.
Close contact is a start.
Yeah.
Are you going to announce any deals today to this audience? Or?
Yes. Today we are not going to announce specifics, but what we can announce is very clear. Topic number 1, we are already delivering to AI data centers. Now we are launching in a few days a new product line together with Taiwanese company Akbel, which is for the battery backup units. And then this year, as told, we are launching actually 2 new plants to deliver specifically for AI data centers. But in the start of the year 2026, you will hear about significant announcements and the setting up of Skeleton US.
And what about Skeleton GCC? What are you going to do in this region?
Yeah. What we see is that in terms of Gulf states, we have here a perfect storm. And why is that? Renewables are going up at the fastest rates globally. And when the share of AI data centers, the power grid capacity versus the share of AI, it's the highest in Emirates, in Saudi, and this is perfect storm from sustainability perspective, because if you don't have the safety belt for renewables and AI, what will happen? Same things what has happened in Spain. And you saw that 4 months ago, Skeleton ran our biggest marketing campaign ever, the blackout in Spain. We didn't cause it, let's be clear, we didn't pay for that specifically, but it wasn't a bad campaign, because people understood that now what hasn't happened in Europe for 70 years, it's a new reality. But now add to this in Gulf states, the issues with more AI data centers than any European country can dream of, and more renewables. So we are currently in the process of setting up also Skeleton in Gulf, and we are not only looking Gulf as a customer base, we are looking Gulf states also as a potential manufacturing and R&D hub, because let's be clear, the gravity of the world has shifted to the Gulf. Innovation is happening here, not just joint ventures and manufacturing plants, but really innovation in terms of AI, innovation in terms of power grid and renewables. So Skeleton, yes, is a European company in Germany, in Finland, in Estonia, but we are becoming a global company driven by the AI infrastructure.
So at some stage soon we may see the opening of the Skeleton Technologies gigafactory somewhere in the desert, somewhere in the UAE.
We are thinking about indeed Gulf states, and that's why I'm very often here in the UAE, but also in other Gulf states, because what we see is that we don't just want to manufacture here because there's a lot of capital here. We are looking for partnerships, and we are looking for solving actual problems in the power grid and in terms of AI data centers. Because it's very clear that what I see here in Emirates, there's a lot of hunger to build new things. There's a lot of drive for that type of innovation. And I think any tech company who is serious about their business, they need to be in Gulf states. And why not in UAE?
Now, Taavi, your graphene GPU cuts energy consumption by 44-45%. And yet the demand for computer processing in data centers, because of all these text prompts, all these videos we're generating, is growing much faster than that. If you step back a bit, not just from what Skeleton Technologies is working on, do you think we will solve this problem of growing energy consumption as the AI revolution goes more and more mainstream?
Yes. I think the answer is long-term, yes. But it will get much worse before it gets better. Because let's be clear, in Europe we had the Spanish blackout 3-4 months ago. And that really put the investment plans of the transmission system operators into action, because now they understood that it is the last time to move. But here with AI, what I see is that we will experience a lot of issues, what you see already now in the grid, but then with companies like Skeleton and others, this type of issues will actually spur further growth and quicker growth. And that's why we are not only thinking about can we expand our plants in Europe, but we are looking at both the Gulf states and the US to be ready for that demand increase. And last but not least, we need to talk about the raw materials. But why curved graphene is important? Because unlike regular batteries, no lithium, no cobalt, no manganese. And this type of strategic value chain becomes of crucial importance. And I think we need to be clear as well that when we have the innovation in GPUs, then we cannot match it only with old existing technologies and say that provides the best outcome. We need to bring new technologies like supercapacitors, like graphene materials, to actually drive down the cost. Because I will be clear on one thing. If we don't lower the cost of AI, we will have no wide-scale video enablement in terms of AI, because nobody's making money. And Skeleton mission is simple. Not only cutting the emissions and energy cost, but cutting the overall cost of AI. Because that is needed for the wider implementation.
So let's talk about how you do this in practice. You have about 350 people in your team, and they're building a vertically integrated company.
Yes.
A bit like SpaceX. You're not relying on outside suppliers for the cells. You're writing the software yourself.
Yeah.
Why do you feel you need to do it all in-house?
Yeah. You know, when we started the company, we started as a materials technology company, and when we thought that somebody will come and integrate our curved graphene and we will make a high margin business out of that. And when we understood that that somebody needs to be us, because nobody in the market wanted to pay a higher price for a product which delivers more value. And now with hyperscalers, we understood 2 years ago, there's nothing to do with the best hardware product in the world if you don't have the necessary software communicating directly with the GPUs, with the Blackwell GP200, Blackwell GP300. And we saw that gap in the market. And I think our overall strategy has always been that we are not a company which also makes batteries in Europe. We always need to differentiate on a global level. And if you look at even a company like NVIDIA, when you have much more vertical integration than one might think, you need to have the materials, you need to have hardware, you need to have software. And then in terms of Skeleton, we are not going after the sexy, shiny markets of electrical vehicle batteries. Yes, it's a huge market, but it has been commoditized. So we need to stay in this type of niches in terms of AI power infrastructure, grid stability, and specialized defense applications.
And is part of the reason you're doing it all in-house because of geopolitical risk? You don't want to get worried when China decides it's going to limit the export of rare earth materials, for instance?
Yeah. I think a key part is following that. If you think about the supply chain, then it becomes evident that, of course, you immediately don't make the sales because of having a more resilient supply chain. But if you think from context of AI infrastructure, who in US wants to take a risk on China, and who in China wants to take a risk on US? I guess not many companies. And I think this will become front and center in AI infrastructure as well, that is the supply chain there. And you know, in discussions with world's largest GPU manufacturers, supply chain is as important as technology. Because you might have the greatest product, but if you cannot deliver it at scale, it means nothing. And this is where Skeleton's unique approach actually comes into force.
Now you're from this little tiny country in the top right of Europe with just 1.3, 1.4 million people. I don't know how many of you have been to Estonia, but it has the highest per capita number of unicorns anywhere in the world, like 10 or 11. And if you've raised 300 million euros, I'm sure you're kind of heading towards that, if not there already. Why has such a tiny place created so many multi-billion-dollar companies with global impact?
Do you know what was the average salary in Estonia back in 1992? Take a guess. It was $40 US. Estonia was as rich as China at that time. So we had a very good educational system, but we had very little money. We had no cushy corporate jobs to get to. So if you wanted to get by, you needed to become an entrepreneur. And then second thing, our domestic market is so small. You cannot build a global company in terms of being an Estonian tech entrepreneur and servicing all these 1.3 million people who we have. So we needed to think global from the get-go. But I think third topic is that success was built on success. That Estonia had the co-founders of Skype, and that gave Estonians the confidence. You could see that your next door neighbor, he could build a multi-billion company. And then you thought to yourself, okay, but am I so much worse than my neighbor? And then other companies like Wise and Bolt and so on came along. And basically, if you look at the Estonian tech ecosystem, I think it's an extreme good example where not only software is being done, but there has been spillover to hardware, to climate tech, but now also to AI.
It's a village. I mean, you ran the Estonian railways, and then you set up a defense tech company. So with your current business, Skeleton Technologies, which is growing, which is tackling one of the hardest problems in the AI revolution, that suggests that at some stage soon, you're going to start offering your shares on public markets. When are you going to IPO?
We have set our target in terms of 2027 and the US market. And why the US market? Because, of course, the AI data centers' main customers, they are in the United States. And we see that in terms of AI infrastructure, there's significant demand not only from perspective of the customers, but also from perspective of the capital markets, because everybody understands long term, we cannot continue like that. If we don't have the reliability in terms of power system, we will spend too much money on AI. But secondly, if we don't invest in the grid, we will have a blackout event like we saw in Spain. And let's be clear, the modern civilization, after 24 hours of blackout, completely falls down. And that type of cost is not measured only in money. That type of cost is much higher. So that's why I see is that US market 2027, and it's clear that from Skeleton side, what we need to do is not think about the IPO. We need to just execute, and the IPO is a function of our execution.
But in the meantime, with luck, your ultra-capacitor factories are going to make us feel less guilty when we're asking ChatGPT to do our homework. Taavi, Madiberk of Skeleton Technologies, best of luck with the factory building.
Thank you. Thank you, David. Thank you.